It's time to learn some grammar. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Input English. Our topic for today is grammar. How do you learn the complicated grammar of English? What's the best way to do it? As I've pointed out before, when comprehensible input was first described, it was an academic discussion. But by the early 1980s, comprehensible input was introduced to language learners. Experts, or so-called experts at the time, looked at comprehensible input with some puzzlement. How can you learn language if you don't study the structure? How could you possibly learn all the grammar rules without studying grammar? So, admittedly, comprehensible input was met with some disbelief, particularly disbelief from people who were not familiar with how comprehensible input worked. It was common in the late 20th century for people to say, comprehensible input, yeah, but, okay, yeah, but, let's take that apart. Yes, comma, but. Yeah, but is the short version. It's where the words get glued together. Okay. So, yes, but. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, sure. It sounds like they agree with you. But the second part of the phrase, but, introduces their disagreement. So there was a lot of yeah, but with comprehensible input. Great, it's interesting. Let's do comprehensible input. But we need to add some vocabulary and grammar studies. There's a lot of interest on the part of some to add the secret sauce to comprehensible input, to add that supplemental material that's going to make the difference. My response to that, my casual response to that, rubbish. Rubbish. It's nonsense. We've said before, babies are born. They listen to their parents. They listen to their siblings. They relentlessly learn their language. They speak with good vocabulary and good grammar before they go to school. Grammar rules are super complex, and there are a lot of exceptions. So from a practical point of view, if you want to learn how to understand and speak English, but then you focus on grammar, you've changed the subject. You're no longer focused on learning to understand spoken English, and you're no longer focused on being able to speak English. You are now studying the structure of the language. In other words, it makes no sense. When it comes to learning grammar, my advice is very straightforward. Forget about it. Ignore it. Do not focus on it. Focus on the story. When you have chosen input for yourself, focus on the story. What is the speaker talking about? What's happening in the story? As the story unfolds, and you understand the story will bring the grammar into your brain. We have to remember that comprehensible input takes advantage of our innate abilities. This is where we diverge from traditional methods. Traditional methods force you to study, force you to memorize, force you to learn things by rote in a very boring atmosphere. Comprehensible input is the opposite of boring. You choose input that you find interesting and you go after the story. It will bring the language into your brain. Your brain is designed to absorb languages. So, it's actually a very simple topic. Don't worry about grammar. Decades ago, when I was trying to learn German, I equipped myself with grammar books and dictionaries. In subsequent years, trying to learn other languages, I was quick to buy grammar books, workbooks, dictionaries. Now, I have no grammar books, no dictionaries. What I have is literature. So if you were to audit my home, you would find books not on Spanish, but in Spanish. Not on German, but in German. As we have discussed before, wherever you are, if you add a small amount of input, you won't notice anything different. But if you add hundreds of hours of input, you will notice a lot. And if you add enough input, you will notice that you actually know grammar for English, but you don't know the rules. You know intuitively how to say things. This is the way the native speaker deals with grammar. Most of us who use good grammar in our native language have a very difficult time explaining to somebody what the rules are that we're following. I can't take a sentence in English and say, well, let's see, the second person singular should. No, I'm not able to do that. My understanding of English, or your understanding of your native language, is more intuitive. It's in here. You have a feel for it. You use the words and make the sentences naturally. So this is the way I would recommend we deal with our grammar. Don't study about the language, acquire the language. It's very tempting to try to add traditional language learning methods on top of comprehensible input. And the reason I recommend against doing that is it decreases your efficiency. Your time is super valuable, and you choose how you spend your time. If you spend your time acquiring a language through input, that is listening and then later reading, then your acquisition of language will be more efficient. If you take some of that valuable time and divert it away from input and change that time into looking things up in a grammar book, studying grammar rules, you'll simply decrease your efficiency and it will take longer for you to learn the language. So that's it. My recommendation on grammar, ignore it. But get enough input that your natural, innate ability to learn it through input will have an opportunity to work. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this brief episode. If you have any thoughts or concerns, maybe a question, put it in the comments section. We encourage people to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video. Bye.